Uh, Very good morning, students. Myself, Krishan Kumar, Assistant Professor of Political Science in Deswag University. So, today I will talk about international relations. This topic is very important part of the syllabus of our MA Political Science, our BA, BA LLB, and PhD. And our question is that what is the meaning of international relation, its scope and its theories. International relation is not a new subject, it is also a very old subject, because if you go in the history and so we would find in the writings of Aristotle stated about human that a human being can't survive without other human beings. The same thing is applied upon a state. A state can't survive without another states. Whether the state is America, whether a small state like that Bhutan. If America has a power to produce something, so maybe Bhutan has a power to grab this production. So that's why both nations, both states are depends each other. If we want to explain international relation in the word of layman, that means relations among nations. And international relation is very wider comparatively international politics, because international politics related to just the issues of politics, peace, war, treaties, government. These are the issue of international politics. But international relation is so wider. Here we can discuss economic issue, religious issue, social issue, and as well as political issue. So now I will tell you about the scope of international relations. Scope of IR. It is a very wider scope, because I stated that IR means relations among nations, and moreover to stated that international relation is the study of a mechanism, a relation of nations which are running on the basis of interest, on the basis of ideology, on the basis of leadership. So here I want to put some scope of IR. First is study of national conflicts. National conflict is a part of a nation, but it is also part of international relations, because sometimes a nation conflict converted to international conflict, like that the conflict of Sri Lanka, LTTE, Liberation Tiger of Tamil Eelam. That was a organization, and during 90s a civil war was happened in Sri Lanka, and according to scholars that was a part of internal part of Sri Lanka. But later on India also entered this conflict, and that conflict became international conflict. Second thing is study of international conflict, as well as like the Kashmir issue. It is a international conflict, because sometimes Russia, USA, China also involved in this conflict. And the talk about this conflict. Study of state. State is the main actor of international relations. Another hand, if I say that states are the main actor of international relations, because all policies, all international laws, policies all things are just running for state. So, but which type of state? It is also a study of IR. Is a state, because for a state, four things are very mandatory, like that: population, government, and geography and recognition. Study of diplomacy, also part of IR, because without diplomacy, the international world can't survive, because sometimes resources are very limited, but all nations want to grab these sources. So after that, the all nations started a diplomacy, and who nation has a good plan, has a good diplomacy to fulfill their national interests. So diplomacy also part of IR. Study of international treaties, like that CTBT, why India did not sign this treaty. Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty is related with the nuclear. According to that treaty, the major powers don't want that nuclear weapons should be spring another nations. Study of international law, because armamentum. Without international law, we can't imagine relations among nations. If sometimes a conflict breaks among nations, so then they go to the International Court of Justice, and where international law, study of ideology, that Marxist, liberal, socialism, neoliberalism, these are all ideologies also part of IR. Study of international organizations, that United Nations organization, which was formed by a collective efforts of major powers, and at presently UNO is working for the peace of world. Next is study of international leadership, like that Putin, like that Donald Trump, like that Narendra Modi. These international leadership also part of IR, because sometimes leadership also change the international relations. And study of non-state actors. At presently, I discussed that IR is the subject of study state, but after some time and at contemporary era, non-state actors also become a part of the study of IR, like that Al Qaeda, ISI, Taliban. These all institutions are non-state, but they also part of international mechanism. So that's why they have become a part of international relations. So these are the scope of international relations. Later on, I will talk about the theories. International relations has a number of theories, but I describe here for liberal theory, Marxist theory, realistic theory, and moralistic theory. Liberal theory based upon the a philosophy upon the ideology of liberal. Marxist theory also based upon the ideology and philosophy of Karl Marx. Realistic theory based upon Kautilya, Machiavelli, and Hans J. Morgenthau. They described about the IR that this is also a art, this is also a mechanism which used by nations to fulfill their national interest and nothing else. And moralistic theory, it is also an idealistic theory. As per this theory, that all nations want to live with peace, but if due to some reason any war broke in the world, so all nations want to resolve that problem with peace. So this is the moralistic theory. After that, I will explain one by one some features of these theories. Liberal theories based upon these thinkers, Immanuel Kant, Hobbes, Woodrow Wilson. They describe out the liberal theory of international relations. They believe in liberalism. They believe that the all nations have a potential to live together with peace. Features of liberal theory, they believe in the individualism. According to liberal theory, that individual is more important than any state and any other institution. So the world has a duty to save an individual and duty to create an environment where an individual develop his or her personality. Tolerance, they believe that nations have a potential to tolerate each other. So that's why they believe that the peace can be maintained by some mechanism. It is not mandatory that all nations all time will be busy in war and conflicts. Freedom, they believe in freedom, that like that every individual has a right of freedom, so like that every state has a right of freedom. And according to these theorists, that every nation is equal and freedom. Constitutionalism, they don't believe just in constitution, they believe in constitutionalism, because sometimes a nation has a constitution but the nation is not able to apply, execute that constitution, so that constitution has no relevant. So that's why they believe in the constitutionalism. And for constitutionalism, they use international mechanism, whether United Nations peacekeeping, peace building and peace making programs. International organization, again United Nations. Regional organization also a part of IR. And liberal theorists believe that regional organization like that SARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, is an organization. And with this organization, all nations trying to develop a peaceful world, a peaceful environment for their future generations. And last but not least, global world. Due to social media, the whole world has converted a global world, a global village, where every nation is related another nation. Next is challenge of liberal theory. First, conflict resolution methods. The biggest challenge in front of liberal theory is that conflict resolution methods. How we can resolve a conflict? Because if we want to control war with the help of war, we want to control violence with the violence, so that will increase the violence. Because Gandhiji also stated that violence generate more violence. So United Nations chapter 6 and chapter 7 describe the some methods of conflict resolutions, but major powers use these methods according to the its need and its comfort. So this is a big challenge. Like that, America a number of times used these methods, coercive methods. Later on, American hegemony after 90 and the disintegration of USSR, USA was only a superpower, and that time American hegemony also created some problems for small states, whether Iraq, Asia and Africa. So this is also a big challenge in front of liberal theory. The Cold War also a problem in front of liberal theory, because due to Cold War, the whole world divided in two groups and they were not ready to do any talk, any dialogue, any diplomacy. Individualism also a problem, also a challenge in front of liberal theory, because individualism is a very vital concept. Who will decide that this is a part of individualism and this is a part of society and this is a part of state? Sometimes a state is working for their people, but another states recognize that this particular action is against individual rights. So after this debate, a conflict came and that conflict disturbed the peace. This is also a big challenge and hard nationalism at presently, because nationalism is nothing, as Hans de Morgenthau also stated. This is just a mechanism or tools in the hand of, even Gramsci also stated that nationalism is nothing, it is just tools in the hand of bourgeois states and bourgeois class, who use these tools to control proletarian class and save their rights. Now, I want to discuss about the Marxist theory, which is totally based upon the philosophy of Karl Marx, Lenin, Gramsci, and Mao. Karl Marx wrote Das Kapital, Lenin Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, and Gramsci, the prisoner notebook, Mao, the new democracy. And these theory totally based upon the Marxist theory. As per Marx, the society has divided on two classes, haves and has not. The same thing is apply upon the world, and world also divided into two types of states, bourgeois states and proletarian states. Bourgeois means rich states and poor states, and rich states exploiting poor states with the help of some mechanism, and this mechanism is like nationalism. I repeat again that nationalism also, Gramsci accepted that are tools in the hand of bourgeois class, and that tool always used just for the interest of bourgeois class, and proletarian class always just a puppet. Religion is the opium of the masses. As per the Marxist theory, religion also are tools in the hand of bourgeois class to control proletarian. The same thing apply upon the world, and world also use religion to control poor nations. Human nature is changeable. Marx also accept that human nature always changeable, and so nations' identity and nations' interest also change, but always bourgeois state exploit proletarian states. World divided into poor and rich countries, I explained already. International organizations have a tools in the hand of rich nations, like the United Nations, WHO, World Bank. These institutions a mechanism to control poor nations. Cultural imperialism is the delusion for backward nations. This concept was given by the Antonio Gramsci. He stated that at presently, rich countries transport their culture in poor countries, and these poor countries accept that culture, and that culture after some time tools in the hand of rich countries to exploit these poor countries. And last but not least, international law is nothing, just a tool, just a utopian law which always used against proletarian state. So this Marxist theory is based upon the philosophy of Marx. Marxist theory of fire, there is no equality among nations. These are also the no cooperation possible. By communist revolution, the world will be stateless. So Marx described over the international world that there is no equality among nations. Some nations very poor, some nations very rich. By communist revolution, the world will be stateless, and they suggested that the only one method, and that is communist revolution. And after that revolution, the whole world will be stateless, and then nobody will be exploit anybody. Criticism at presently, we have some example on these points explain that Marxist theory is not accepted by the all. We have some facts which believe that Marxist theory is not correct. First thing is that international law. Today, international law are so applicable. United Nations also working for the peace, for the resolve of conflicts. Cooperation also possible at presently, like that EU, SARC, these regional organizations based upon the cooperation and economic issue more important. So that's why peace is more important for the whole world and political issues secondary. Here I want to put example of India-China relations. We have a big conflict with China, but still our economic relations going high to high. Next is realistic theory. Realism is a theory that claims to explain the reality of international politics. It is also based on the realistic approach, human nature, that and human nature is dynamic. So this theory also describes that international relations always dynamic. It is not permanent. Debates in the field like that. IR politics roots in its features. International politics roots have in human nature. Second, national interest defined terms of national power. जो कंट्री जैसा पावरफुल है उसके इंटरेस्ट उतने ही बड़े होते हैं और उतने एक्सेप्टेबल होते हैं. इंटरेस्ट ऑलवेज डायनेमिक. एक देश के जो इंटरेस्ट हैं वो हमेशा बदलते रहते हैं, डायनेमिक होते हैं. और मॉरल जो प्रिंसिपल है, मोरालिटी को पॉलिटिक्स पर अप्लाई नहीं किया जा सकता. और दूसरा क्या है, एक नेशन की मोरालिटी और एक इंटरनेशनल मोरालिटी में बहुत डिफरेंस होता है. यूनिवर्सल मोरालिटी नाम की कोई चीज़ नहीं है अकॉर्डिंग टू रियलिस्टिक अप्रोच. एंड ऑटोनॉमी ऑफ इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स. इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स अपने अपने गेम है. इट इज़ अ स्ट्रगल फॉर पावर. So thank you so much students. I hope you understand very well about this question. What is the meaning of IR, its scope, its theories. Thank you so much.